Hi, it's Karla here with Canvas Corp Brand's Tattered Angels YouTube channel, and I'm reviewing the 4 different types of mists available in the Tattered Angels store today. So we have Simply Sheer, which is a translucent paint mist, and it does not have any glimmer in it. Then you have the Glimmer Mist, which is probably the most popular that people have heard about, and it is a translucent mist, but it has glimmer. So depending on whether you want glimmer or not, if you want to use the Simply Sheer to add some extra layers to create deeper colors, you can do that. And you can also add Glimmer Mist to your Simply Sheer just to give it some glimmer. We have, thirdly, the Chalkboard Mist. It's a semi-opaque mist and it has glimmer in it. So it's going to give you a little bit of extra mist coverage, and it will work as a chalkboard paint on walls or different surfaces. And you can add it to Glimmer Mist or Simply Sheer just to give it a little more opacity. And then lastly, we have the Baseboard Mist, where we have a semi-opaque mist, just like the chalkboard, but without the glimmer. So it does all the same things and just has less glimmer in it, or no glimmer in it, rather. So I'm showing you how I'm swatching out my mists that I have. They can all work together, and like I said, they have the different properties. And I have them here in rainbow order so I can see what I have. A couple of the mists were discontinued mists, and I matched them up as well as I could with the Tattered Angels catalog. And I've just brought this swatch out into the sun so you can see with the Glimmer Mist and the Chalkboard Mist how glimmery they are. And then with the Baseboard and the Simply Sheer, it's just the wash of color. And with the Baseboard, it is a little more opaque. I love these colors at the bottom. They just add so much glimmer. So here I'm adding a little Chalkboard Mist to a black piece of paper and some Baseboard to the pink. So you see the glimmer on the black, and then I've got a black Glimmer Mist that I'm adding through a stencil. And then I lay my tag right onto the stencil after I used it. You can also tap the paint from the applicator right onto your project. This is a Ken Oliver watercolor piece of paper that can be bought at the Canvas Corp brand shop. And I'm using the mists as a watercolor and creating a little bookmark here. Very pretty, and they really layer well together, and you can mix them too. Now here's a piece of Resist cardstock that I've sprayed directly, and then I always like to reuse the mist that's left over on the craft sheet, so I added a little bit extra color and laid my tag right in it. That black piece of paper was one of the Canvas Corp papers that have the ivory and black, and this is another piece of the Canvas Corp paper, and they really take the mists so beautifully. You can paint them right on, and I really like this plaid design. You can make it, of course, whatever color you want, and it would be perfect for cards and scrapbooking. And I'm just painting directly onto this butterfly and the cardstock with the mist. So this is one of my favorite techniques to do. Just dipping my paintbrush in and layering the colors on. And I think it's lovely to go through the catalogs and just see what colors you love, and if you want to choose them based on their properties or just based on their colors. So here I've got a piece of the Mistables paper by Tattered Angels, and I'm just misting directly on it. This is the crepe paper, and I added a little bit of extra Simply Sheer on the top to give it a bit of an ombre effect. I'm dipping my rubber stamp directly into that mist on the craft mat and stamping right onto my background, which is so cool. And now I grabbed a clear stamp and used that as well to stamp. So both of them stamped very nicely. And I'm going to spray some chipboard pieces with each kind. So the first one I sprayed was with the Simply Sheer. So that's the translucent mist with no glimmer. And then you can see me just kind of using up the sprays on the background on some other projects that I have going there. And that green was the Glimmer Mist. So that's the translucent mist with the shimmer in it. And I did some more stamping as well. Really like how this stamped on. This is a little piece of canvas. Really beautiful. And I'm just setting those to the side to dry as I kind of go through. And this is another feather stamped from a Wild Whisper stamp. Now this is just adding some paint to an acrylic block, and you can use it for a packaging technique, sometimes it's called, or an ink smushing technique. Worked really well. Here is the chalkboard paint, and this is the semi-opaque paint mist with glimmer. So that was the orange there, and I'm just dipping my tag right in and adding some color, using up that mist on the background so it doesn't go to waste. I've even grabbed a paper flower here, and I'm just painting directly on it. And here is the baseboard paint, and that is the semi-opaque mist with no glimmer. So I've sprayed just a piece of white cardstock with the mist, and I wanted to see if it worked as a chalkboard paint on the cardstock, and you'll see in a bit here that it did, and it's very cool. That's a piece of tissue from the Canvas Corp line, and I just dipped that right into the mist, and of course it accepts the mist very lovely. Stamping again on the piece of canvas there and on my tag, and then just dipping the rubber stamp in as well and adding a few more images to my background on my tag. That ink smushing I think is one of my favorites. And then I added some it's Dazzling Diamonds Glimmer Mist, so it adds glimmer to the baseboard mist, which doesn't have any glimmer, and that's what I dipped that doily in to add some shimmer. So that's each one of those chipboard pieces once they're dried, and you can see they're all colored beautifully. Some have shimmer, some don't, some are a little more opaque. And I'm just running through all the projects and holding them up so you can see how beautiful they are. It's so fun to grab a bunch of different supplies and papers and tags, and just you can either color coordinate them to what you're working on or just have fun. And here is my daughter writing her name on that little piece of paper we turned into a mini chalkboard. This would be fun inside a frame. She had a lot of fun with this, so we wanted to let you have a look. Here's a stamp that I'm stamping on watercolor paper and adding some embossing powder just in white. I heat it up, and then I'm going to paint directly onto the watercolor paper and watercolor these images in. All of the paints work beautifully as watercolors, and the red here, you can see I'm going around the edges, and then I'm adding some water to give it a little bit of an ombre effect on her pretty wings, and you can really do some nice effects. Now you could of course stamp this in black as well, but I really like the look of white embossing powder on watercolor. and I just kind of color in all the little pieces with a small paintbrush. And then on the background, I'm going to take my water and wet the cardstock first, and then you'll see when I add the blue on the background, it just wicks away and really keeps it nice and light. And there it is finished. I really love how this little girl turned out. And here I've got some of the iridescent gold Glimmer Mist, and I'm just wetting my ribbon first. You could use water too, and I find that the mists really take beautifully and spread when the item is wet. But of course you can spray them on dry, and you can wet it after, or you can just spray them on and crumple it like that. So that's just a piece of seam binding ribbon, and I crumple it up and let it dry, and I love the look of that after. So now I'm just painting another little piece of that Canvas Corp paper, and I added some of the chalkboard spray to that flower because it was a little bit darker and I wanted a more opaque coverage. And here I've grabbed a piece of canvas which takes the paints and mists beautifully, and I just painted directly onto that canvas. Now you can't really wash that because they're not color fast, but if it's a project that you're not going to wash, then they're perfect for that. And I'm just spraying some more items that I grabbed. There was some corrugated paper, some twine, and here's some burlap. And I decided to spray the burlap with 2 different kinds of blue, and then dip my paper in the background to use that as a bit of a stencil. And then I grabbed the 3D translucent gel medium, and I'm just adding the glimmer, I think it was a baseboard that I grabbed there, and I mixed it with the mist. You could use any of the mists, and then I spread that right on. So you can see how lovely that dries. You could use that with a gesso or with a white embossing texture paste. And here's everything, a look at everything. So at some point I'm going to sit down and make all these into some pretty cards or tags, and they'll be ready to give for gift giving. So I hope you enjoyed going through these today. I had a lot of fun making them, and I hope you'll check out the Tattered Angels store and see what your favorites are. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'd love for you to like and subscribe.